Hello, friends. Are you ready to explore the fascinating world of Braveheart? Released on May 24, 1995, this film has sparked endless discussions, and today, we're bringing you all the hidden gems, stunning details, and unforgettable moments. If you enjoy this deep dive, be sure to hit that like button. It really helps our channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe for more exciting movie explorations. Let's jump right in and uncover the magic together, Braveheart, a film that, in the summer of 1995, forever etched itself into cinematic history, capturing the imagination of audiences worldwide. Released on May 24, 1995, Braveheart wasn't just another historical epic. It was a bold, sweeping journey that transported viewers to 13th century Scotland, where rebellion, freedom, love, and sacrifice collided in a way that few films have managed since. Directed by and starring Mel Gibson, Braveheart wasn't merely a retelling of William Wallace's life. It was an emotional, visceral experience that engaged both the intellect and the heart. From its fierce battle sequences to its unforgettable performances, the film became a defining cultural touchstone that continues to resonate today. But what makes Braveheart worth a deep dive? What makes it stand out among a sea of historical epics? Beyond its historical accuracy, or lack thereof, and stunning visuals, Braveheart succeeds in weaving together a tapestry of timeless themes. It speaks to the very essence of human nature, the yearning for freedom, the price of leadership, and the complexities of love and sacrifice. It's a film that pulls you in with its rousing speeches, then quietly grips you with moments of heartbreak and inner conflict. It's a film that inspires and questions, all in the span of nearly 3 hours. So, let's take a journey through the heart of Braveheart. Let's explore what makes this film so compelling, from its sweeping landscapes to the intricacies of its characters, and understand why it captured the attention of audiences around the world. And as we dive deeper, we'll explore the unexpected moments, the secrets behind its stunning visuals, and the performances that continue to stand the test of time. The film begins in the childhood of William Wallace, who witnesses the brutal murder of his father and older brother at the hands of the English. This early trauma shapes Wallace's character and sets the stage for his quest for revenge and freedom. Raised by his uncle, Wallace returns to Scotland as an adult, where he initially seeks a quiet life. Yet, the oppressive reign of King Edward I, known as Edward Longshanks, looms over the country, and soon Wallace finds himself leading a rebellion against English oppression. The central motivation of Wallace's character, freedom, begins to shape not only his own journey but also the journey of those who follow him. One of the film's most fascinating aspects is how it contrasts the personal and political. Wallace, a man who loses everything to the English, transforms from a grieving husband to a passionate leader of men. His growing movement for freedom becomes less about personal vengeance and more about a larger cause. This transition is a powerful one. The personal stakes are high, but they evolve into something far more significant than revenge. As Wallace gathers followers, including the loyal Hamish, Brendan Gleeson, the rebellious Stephen, David O'Hara, and ultimately Robert the Bruce, Angus McFadden, the film shifts between intense moments of battle and quieter, deeply personal moments of introspection. But it's not just Wallace's story that propels Braveheart. The film weaves in the complex relationships between its characters. The love story between Wallace and Murren, Catherine McCormick, is one of profound emotional depth, with Murren's tragic death at the hands of the English fueling Wallace's relentless pursuit of justice. This love story becomes the emotional anchor for Wallace's character, driving him through moments of loss, doubt, and betrayal. It's here that the film masterfully balances action and heart. When Wallace seeks vengeance for Murren, it's not simply about revenge. It's about the deeper human emotions of grief, love, and the desire for justice. The political intrigue in Braveheart also stands as a testament to the film's layered storytelling. The character of Robert the Bruce provides an interesting and morally complex contrast to Wallace. The Bruce, a nobleman torn between loyalty to his country and his own ambitions, is faced with the ultimate question. Should he betray Wallace, the man who represents the true Scottish cause, in order to secure his own claim to the throne? His arc is one of internal conflict, as his allegiance shifts and evolves throughout the film, ultimately leading to a bittersweet resolution. Robert's journey is particularly compelling because it shows the multifaceted nature of leadership and ambition, as well as the personal sacrifices that come with it. And then there's the film's most iconic element, the battles. Braveheart revolutionized how audiences experience historical warfare on screen. The Battle of Stirling Bridge is perhaps the most famous sequence in the film, and for good reason. The film doesn't just depict the battle in a grand, sweeping sense. It puts us right in the thick of it. The raw, visceral nature of the combat is stunning, with chaotic sword fights, cavalry charges, and moments of intense, close-quarters brutality. It's an unflinching look at the cost of war, where each swing of the sword and every death has consequences. The sheer scale of the battles, combined with the film's tight, intimate character moments, is what elevates the action to a level rarely seen in historical epics. Yet Braveheart isn't just about the grand spectacle of war, it's about the quiet moments, too. The moments of reflection. The moments where Wallace grapples with the weight of his actions and the consequences of his choices. After his victory at Stirling, Wallace's subsequent defeat at Falkirk is a powerful turning point. It's not just a military loss, it's the loss of his innocence. It's a sobering realization that the fight for freedom comes with unthinkable sacrifices. Braveheart explores the harsh reality of revolution, that victory often comes at a tremendous cost, and that the journey toward freedom is rarely straightforward. One of the film's most powerful moments occurs toward the end, when Wallace is captured and brought to trial. In one of the most memorable speeches in cinematic history, Wallace, despite being tortured and on the brink of death, declares, "Freedom." This is the ultimate moment of defiance, a cry that resonates not just within the context of the film but also within the broader themes of human struggle and dignity. Wallace's death, brutal and unjust, is not the end of his story. In fact, it becomes the very spark that ignites Scotland's eventual independence. His martyrdom becomes a symbol for the cause, and the film's final moments, which show the eventual success of the Scottish Rebellion, are an emotional and rousing conclusion. From its fierce battle sequences to its emotionally charged performances, Braveheart captivated audiences with its stunning visuals and poignant narrative. The sweeping landscapes of Scotland, captured beautifully by cinematographer John Toll, are a visual feast, giving a sense of scale and grandeur to the film that complements its larger-than-life story. Whether it's the rolling hills of the Highlands or the dark, gritty interiors of castles and battlefields, the film's cinematography reinforces the stark contrast between the beauty of the land and the brutality of the war. What truly sets Braveheart apart, though, is its ability to connect on a deeper emotional level. Yes, the battle scenes are thrilling, and the historical events are compelling, but it's the human element, the love, the pain, the sacrifice, that makes this film unforgettable. Mel Gibson's portrayal of William Wallace is nothing short of iconic, capturing the full complexity of the character, from the young, grieving warrior to the seasoned leader who inspires a nation. His performance, combined with the exceptional supporting cast, elevates the material, transforming what could have been a typical historical epic into something much more. Braveheart struck a chord with audiences not just for its action and spectacle, but for its deeply human story. It's a film that makes you feel, whether it's the burning desire for freedom, the weight of loss, or the exhilarating triumphs. It is a story of rebellion, yes, but also of the cost of that rebellion. It is about standing up for what's right, even when the odds are insurmountable. And ultimately, it is about the price of freedom. The film's success was not just a product of its box office performance. It grossed over $200 million worldwide, but also its impact on the cultural landscape. Braveheart sparked conversations about Scottish history, nationalism, and the ideals of freedom and resistance. Its themes resonated with audiences across the globe, reminding them of the power of one individual to change the course of history. The movie's memorable lines, unforgettable performances, and gripping storytelling have cemented Braveheart as one of the most iconic films of the 1990s, and one that continues to inspire and resonate today. In exploring Braveheart, we uncover not just a historical epic, but a timeless story that transcends its era. Its message is universal, reminding us of the price of freedom, the power of leadership, and the strength of the human spirit. It's a film that continues to move, inspire, and challenge audiences with every viewing. So, As we reflect on Braveheart, we don't just look back on an epic tale of rebellion. We look forward, inspired by the very ideals that made it so powerful. The first half of Braveheart is a thrilling, emotional rollercoaster that not only establishes the film's tone but also intricately weaves together the key characters, their motivations, and the conflicts that will define the rest of the narrative. From the opening scenes, where the film introduces William Wallace's traumatic past, to the stirring early victories that set the stage for his legendary rise, Braveheart pulls the viewer deep into the heart of Scotland's fight for freedom. This first act is a mix of personal loss, political intrigue, and a raw, visceral journey that ultimately leads to rebellion. The film begins in the year 1280, with a young William Wallace witnessing the brutal death of his father and older brother at the hands of English soldiers. It's a scene that immediately sets the emotional tone for the film. As Wallace's father is killed, we see the anguish in the eyes of the young boy. This moment of loss is not just personal. It's symbolic of the oppression Scotland faces under English rule. The loss of family, land, and identity is deeply felt. Wallace's father and his brother are part of a group of Scottish nobles who are making a stand against King Edward I, known as Edward Longshanks. This early, traumatic event plants the seeds for Wallace's later rebellion, an act that will take him from a grieving boy to a fearsome warrior. It's a moment that connects the personal with the political, setting up the larger narrative of a man driven by the desire for justice, vengeance, and ultimately, freedom. Years pass, and we see Wallace return to Scotland as a young man, now played by Mel Gibson, where he leads a relatively peaceful life as a farmer. But Scotland is under the heavy thumb of English rule, and as Wallace's life is about to take another devastating turn, we see the complex political and personal factors that will define his actions in the coming years. Wallace's quiet life is juxtaposed against the backdrop of a harsh, oppressive regime. England's rule is iron-fisted, with the people of Scotland treated as subjugated subjects. Wallace, however, does not seem to care about the politics of the larger world. His primary concern is his land, his home, and his future. The opening act is filled with subtle moments that set up his quiet defiance against the larger English threat. One of the key early moments in this half of the film is Wallace's reunion with Murren, Catherine McCormick, his childhood love. They fall in love with a simple, tender romance that feels almost out of place in the brutal world surrounding them. Wallace is a man of action, someone whose life has been marked by loss and violence, yet his love for Murren is pure, untouched by the political turmoil around them. This moment of tenderness is crucial. It humanizes Wallace in a way that makes his eventual transformation into a leader of men even more impactful. Their love story is the emotional core of the film, the reason Wallace is fighting at all. Murren's death, at the hands of English soldiers, sets the stage for the personal transformation of Wallace and sets the wheels of rebellion in motion. The peace between Wallace and Murren is shattered when, during a trip to the local market, Murren is publicly assaulted by an English soldier. This is the inciting incident that drives Wallace to take action. After a public outcry, Wallace tries to appeal to the English authorities, seeking justice for Murren's brutal treatment. The English, as expected, dismiss his plea and instead punish him for his insolence. When Murren is eventually executed by hanging, it's not just a personal tragedy for Wallace. It's the straw that breaks the camel's back. The death of his beloved wife propels him from being a simple farmer to being a symbol of resistance. Here, the film starts to ramp up. Wallace, fueled by anger and heartbreak, begins to rally the people of Scotland. What begins as a personal vendetta quickly turns into something much larger. Wallace's passion is infectious, and soon, a small group of Scots, led by Wallace, begins to engage in acts of rebellion against the English forces. What starts as guerrilla-style attacks and sabotage gradually morphs into full-scale battles. Wallace's first major victory at the Battle of Stirling Bridge serves as the turning point of the film, a moment that not only changes Wallace's life but also shifts the entire balance of power in Scotland. Wallace, now seen as a leader and symbol of the Scottish cause, begins to gather more men to his side. But it's not just his passion and skill on the battlefield that make Wallace a formidable leader. It's his ability to inspire. He speaks to the people in a way that resonates with them. During the film's early moments of rebellion, Wallace gives a powerful speech to his men, urging them to fight for freedom, for justice, and for their land. His message is simple, yet powerful. They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom. It's a rallying cry that becomes the backbone of the film, a symbol of resistance and the core of Wallace's character. This speech, one of the most iconic in cinema history, foreshadows the film's central themes: the value of freedom, the cost of standing up against oppression, and the undeniable power of the human spirit. As Wallace's fame grows, so do the challenges he faces. It's during this time that we meet Robert the Bruce, Angus MacFadden, a young Scottish nobleman who is torn between loyalty to his people and his desire for power. Robert's character arc is one of the film's most complex. Initially, he seems to represent the interests of the Scottish elite, but as the film progresses, we begin to see the internal struggle he faces. Should he side with Wallace and his people, or should he align himself with the English in hopes of securing his own political future? Robert's loyalty to Wallace is tested in the first half, culminating in the famous moment where Robert, at a crucial point, betrays Wallace, choosing to side with the English. However, Robert is not an inherently evil character. His betrayal is born from a mixture of fear, ambition, and the harsh political realities of the time. This internal conflict is what makes Robert's character so compelling, and it will have significant consequences in the second half of the film. Alongside Robert the Bruce, the film introduces a number of other supporting characters, each contributing to the depth and complexity of the story. Hamish, Brendan Gleeson, Wallace's loyal friend and fellow warrior, stands as one of the most important characters in the first half of the film. He represents the brotherhood formed in battle and is a constant source of support for Wallace. Hamish's loyalty and camaraderie with Wallace provide emotional grounding in the chaotic, often brutal world the characters inhabit. Their friendship, forged in the fires of battle, highlights the film's central theme of loyalty and sacrifice. The first half also introduces the film's main antagonist, King Edward I, portrayed by Patrick McGoohan. Edward, or Longshanks, is a ruthless, calculating ruler whose oppressive policies fuel the Scottish rebellion. His character is a perfect foil to Wallace. Where Wallace is driven by passion and justice, Longshanks is driven by power and control. Edward's desire to maintain his rule over Scotland sets the stage for the ultimate clash between the two men. The film slowly builds toward this inevitable confrontation, creating an air of tension and anticipation that lingers throughout the early portion of the narrative. Amidst all the battles and political intrigue, Braveheart doesn't shy away from moments of tenderness and vulnerability. One such moment comes when Wallace, despite his growing fame and the weight of leadership, shares a quiet, intimate moment with his true love, Murren. This moment, set against the backdrop of the rolling Scottish hills, is a brief respite from the storm that is coming. It highlights the humanity of the characters amidst the carnage and chaos that surrounds them. This tender love story contrasts beautifully with the harsh realities of the war Wallace is about to wage. Murren's death, when it arrives, hits hard because it's not just the loss of a wife. It's the loss of hope, of peace, and of a dream for a future that was never meant to be. The first half of Braveheart builds momentum with each passing scene, steadily leading us toward the inevitable conflicts that will define the film's second half. The plot is full of exciting developments, whether it's the formation of Wallace's army, his early victories, or the moral dilemmas faced by characters like Robert the Bruce. There are twists and turns, betrayals and victories, each one more compelling than the last. But at the heart of it all is Wallace, a man who, through love, loss, and his desire for justice, becomes something much greater than a mere soldier. He becomes a symbol, a rallying cry for a nation desperate for freedom. As the first half of the film concludes, the stage is set. Wallace has made his mark as a leader, a warrior, and a symbol of resistance. But as the stakes grow higher, so does the cost of his mission. The road ahead is fraught with danger, betrayal, and heartache, and the audience can feel that the true trials of this epic story are yet to come. The first half of Braveheart lays the foundation for a cinematic journey that will leave viewers breathless, as they witness Wallace's rise, his battles, and the price of freedom. The second half of Braveheart takes the established narrative and pushes it into increasingly perilous territory, creating moments of heart-wrenching loss, spectacular triumph, political betrayal, and a final, bitter reckoning. This section of the film is where the stakes grow dramatically higher, as William Wallace's struggle for freedom reaches its boiling point. What starts as a small, personal rebellion transforms into a full-scale war for Scotland's independence, but it also exposes the price of leadership, loyalty, and sacrifice. The emotional and dramatic highs of this second half bring everything to a head, culminating in one of the most powerful cinematic conclusions. The pivotal turning point of the second half arrives with Wallace's victory at Stirling Bridge, an astonishing military triumph that solidifies his position as a leader of the Scottish rebellion. Wallace's victory transforms him from a local hero into a symbol of Scotland's hope for independence. He has the support of the people, his ragtag army of rebels is growing in number and spirit, and for a brief moment, it feels like the impossible is becoming possible. This moment is exhilarating. The underdog has struck a decisive blow against the mighty English army. But the sense of victory is short-lived, and the joy is tempered with the understanding that Wallace's battle has only just begun. He has awakened the wrath of King Edward I, and England will stop at nothing to crush this rebellion. Wallace's leadership and charisma continue to draw support from across Scotland, but it's his commitment to the cause of freedom that resonates most. His speeches, which have become a rallying cry, inspire those around him to fight and die for the promise of independence. The iconic line, "They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom," echoes throughout the film, reminding everyone of the deeply personal stakes for Wallace. But these victories on the battlefield are more than just strategic. They are deeply emotional. Wallace's bond with his people and his army is growing stronger, and with each victory, he becomes not only a figurehead of the revolution but a symbol of hope in an oppressed nation. His loyalty to his men and his undying belief in the fight for freedom make him an almost mythical figure, a leader not of authority, but of compassion and idealism. However, this second half is not without its complexities. One of the most intriguing developments comes with the character of Robert the Bruce, who has been torn between loyalty to Wallace and his ambition for the Scottish throne. The film delves deeper into Robert's internal conflict. He is the son of a powerful Scottish nobleman, but his father, the influential and conniving Douglas, Malcolm McDowell, pressures him into making a strategic alliance with the English in order to further his own claim to the throne. While Wallace's revolution is about liberating Scotland, Robert's personal struggle is about choosing the path of true honor or personal gain. Robert's conflict grows more pronounced as he is faced with a defining choice. At a pivotal moment in the film, Wallace asks Robert to join him in the rebellion, urging him to fight for Scotland's independence, not personal power. This moment of emotional and moral conflict in Robert's journey is both deeply personal and political, as he must reconcile his sense of duty to his country with the stark realities of the political world. Despite their differences, Wallace's influence on Robert is undeniable. It's clear that Robert admires Wallace's unshakable dedication to the cause of freedom, even if it's not enough to sway him from the political decisions he believes he must make. This internal conflict is realized in one of the most crucial twists of the film. At a critical point, Robert betrays Wallace. During a battle with the English, Robert initially fights alongside Wallace, but in a crucial moment, he backs away from the fight, allowing the English to gain the upper hand. This betrayal is devastating for Wallace. He has trusted Robert with his cause, and now the man he has helped uplift has turned against him. The film presents this betrayal not as a simple moral failing, but as a painful choice driven by Robert's understanding of the brutal political landscape. It's a bitter twist that highlights the tragic complexity of Robert's character and serves as a foil to Wallace's unwavering dedication to freedom. The moment of betrayal reverberates throughout the film. Wallace's defeat at Falkirk, the battle that follows Robert's treachery, is one of the most significant emotional lows in the narrative. The battle is a staggering loss for the Scots, but it is also a crushing blow to Wallace's spirit. He has lost his faith in Robert, and more devastatingly, his sense of hope for the cause. Falkirk represents the pinnacle of Wallace's personal and political sacrifices, and yet it's here that he is reminded of the harsh realities of leadership. Wallace's ideals are challenged in ways that shake him to his core. After the battle, Wallace goes into hiding, retreating from the public eye and the rebellion that he has fueled. It is in this period of isolation that the film highlights Wallace's vulnerability, not as a warrior, but as a man who has suffered immeasurable loss. His journey is no longer simply about fighting the English. It's about fighting for the survival of everything he holds dear. Despite Wallace's retreat, the momentum of the rebellion continues to build, and as the film moves toward its final moments, the political and military strategies surrounding the Scottish cause become more intricate. As the resistance against the English becomes more organized, Wallace finds himself at the center of a widening conflict that threatens to consume him completely. Throughout the second half, Wallace's determination to remain true to his ideals clashes with the pragmatic realities of war and betrayal. His martyrdom, if it comes to that, is increasingly inevitable. However, even in his darkest hour, Wallace's spirit is not completely broken. His relationship with the people of Scotland and his unwavering passion for freedom become even more central to the story. His iconic cry for freedom, in the final moments of his life, is one of the film's most stirring scenes. As Wallace is captured and sentenced to die, he endures unimaginable torture, but even in the face of death, he maintains his courage and defiance. The heroism in his final moments lies not just in his unwillingness to bow to the English, but in his absolute faith in the cause he has fought for. In the heart-wrenching scene where Wallace is executed, he remains steadfast. His tortured cries of freedom serve as both a refusal to submit to tyranny and an eternal symbol of resistance to oppression. It's a deeply emotional moment, and it's impossible to ignore the monumental impact of Wallace's sacrifice on those who remain to carry on the fight. The film's emotional core is laid bare during Wallace's final moments. As he is dragged to the scaffold, we see the weight of his journey. The man who once dreamt of a simple life now finds himself in a position where the only thing left to fight for is the ideal of freedom itself. His death becomes an indelible part of Scotland's fight for independence. Wallace's execution sets off a ripple effect that transforms him from a warrior into a martyr, one whose legacy will inspire the future of his people. In the final moments of the film, as Wallace is executed, we see Robert the Bruce standing among the English nobles, struggling with the consequences of his betrayal. At this moment, Robert's internal conflict reaches its peak. His decision to betray Wallace has cost him dearly, and it's clear that his own moral compass has been shattered. The film doesn't let Robert off easily, instead showing the emotional turmoil and regret that haunt him as he watches Wallace die for a cause he once shared. The final, poignant twist comes when Robert makes the decision to rise up against the English and fulfill Wallace's dream of Scottish independence. The climactic Battle of Bannockburn becomes the ultimate resolution to the film's conflict. With the death of Wallace as a catalyst, Robert the Bruce leads the Scottish army into battle against the English. The Scottish forces, now united under the banner of freedom, rise to avenge Wallace's death, fulfilling his legacy. The battle is a culmination of everything Wallace fought for, the freedom of Scotland. With Wallace's spirit living on in the hearts of his people, the Scots defeat the English, and Scotland's independence is finally realized. The film ends with a bittersweet triumph. The camera pans over the battlefield, showing the final moments of victory. Robert the Bruce, now firmly aligned with the Scottish cause, takes his place as a leader in the new Scotland. But even in this victory, there's a palpable sadness. Wallace's death is not just the end of his journey, but also the realization that freedom is a hard-won and costly prize. The film leaves us with the sense that the fight for independence may be over, but the sacrifices required to achieve it will always haunt those who have lived through it. The second half of Braveheart masterfully builds to these emotional peaks, pulling the viewer through moments of intense loss, betrayal, triumph, and redemption. Wallace's personal journey is a reflection of the larger narrative of Scotland's fight for independence, and the film's ultimate success lies in its ability to make the personal and the political blend into a seamless, powerful story. From the exhilarating early victories to the heartbreaking and noble death of its protagonist, Braveheart concludes with an emotional resonance that stays with the viewer long after the credits roll. The film, through its sweeping battles, intimate personal moments, and deeply human storylines, brings the legend of William Wallace to life in a way that few historical epics can. In Braveheart, the characters are not just part of the narrative. They are the lifeblood of the story. Each individual, from the larger-than-life figure of William Wallace to the supporting roles that contribute to the emotional and thematic depth of the film, has a complex journey. As we follow their arcs, we see how their motivations, personal struggles, and relationships shape the events of the film and elevate Braveheart beyond a simple historical epic to a deeply emotional and multifaceted exploration of identity, sacrifice, and freedom. At the heart of the film is William Wallace, the fearless and passionate leader portrayed by Mel Gibson. Wallace's journey is one of profound transformation, from a grieving young man seeking peace to a symbol of resistance and ultimate martyrdom. The film begins with Wallace's childhood trauma, witnessing the brutal murder of his father and brother by English soldiers. This early loss shapes his character throughout the film. Wallace grows up in the Scottish countryside, living a peaceful life as a farmer, seemingly content to remain far from the political turmoil that surrounds him. But it is the injustice that he witnesses, and the love of his life, Murren, being cruelly murdered, that ignites his flame for resistance. His love for Murren, which remains pure and unwavering, serves as his emotional anchor throughout the film, and her death serves as the catalyst for his transformation from a man of peace to a man of war. Mel Gibson brings Wallace to life with such intensity and emotional depth that the character becomes not just a historical figure but an embodiment of universal ideals like justice, loyalty, and the unrelenting pursuit of freedom. Gibson's portrayal of Wallace is both raw and heroic, shifting from the tenderness of his love for Murren to the fierce, almost unyielding leader of the Scottish rebellion. The powerful speeches that Wallace delivers, such as the iconic "They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom," are made all the more stirring by Gibson's impassioned delivery. Wallace is not just a warrior, he is a beacon of hope for the oppressed people of Scotland, and Gibson's performance fully realizes the emotional weight of that responsibility. But as much as Wallace embodies the ideals of freedom and resistance, his character arc is also one of tragedy. His unwavering dedication to his cause, his unrelenting pursuit of justice, ultimately leads to his downfall. Wallace's sacrifice, particularly in the face of betrayal, serves as the emotional and thematic crux of the film. His ability to stand firm, even as he faces unimaginable torture and death, is a testament to the strength of his conviction. Wallace's journey from a man seeking revenge to a symbol of martyrdom is a tragic but heroic one, and Gibson's performance ensures that his legacy feels as enduring and monumental as the character's spirit. In contrast to Wallace's idealism is the character of Robert the Bruce, portrayed by Angus McFadden. Robert's arc is one of internal struggle, one that adds depth to the film's exploration of leadership, loyalty, and the complexities of personal ambition. As the son of a powerful Scottish nobleman, Robert is initially torn between his loyalty to Wallace and the harsh political realities of the time. Robert is an ambitious young man, looking for a way to secure Scotland's independence, but his path is not clear. While Wallace fights for a free Scotland, Robert's motivations are more self-interested, driven by his desire for power and the throne. The film does not make Robert a clear villain, but rather a character caught between two worlds, one of honor and loyalty, and one of political pragmatism. McFadden's portrayal of Robert the Bruce is layered and nuanced, capturing both the internal conflict and the external pressures that he faces. From the moment he is introduced, it's clear that Robert is not a simple character. His father, the manipulative and calculating Douglas, pressures him into making deals with the English to secure his own political power. At the same time, Robert's admiration for Wallace and his growing understanding of the importance of Scottish freedom lead him to question his loyalties. This internal conflict is most evident when Robert chooses to betray Wallace during the Battle of Falkirk, a moment that cuts deep because of the emotional bond that has developed between the two men. It's a decision driven by fear and ambition, but it's also a recognition that the political world is far more complicated than Wallace's idealistic vision of freedom. However, as the film progresses, Robert's character undergoes significant growth. Witnessing Wallace's martyrdom forces Robert to confront his own values and the consequences of his actions. In the final act, Robert redeems himself by leading the Scottish army to victory at Bannockburn, fulfilling Wallace's dream of an independent Scotland. McFadden's portrayal of Robert's evolution from a conflicted nobleman to a true patriot is masterfully done, and it adds a rich layer of complexity to the narrative. Robert's journey is about finding his own sense of honor and aligning it with the greater good, a theme that contrasts yet complements Wallace's unwavering idealism. While Wallace and Robert the Bruce are the central figures of the film, the supporting characters play crucial roles in bringing the story to life. Hamish, played by Brendan Gleeson, is Wallace's loyal friend and right-hand man. From their early days together in the rebellion, Hamish is portrayed as a steadfast companion who not only provides muscle on the battlefield but also emotional support for Wallace during some of his darkest moments. Hamish's loyalty to Wallace is unshakable, and his character offers a much-needed contrast to Wallace's singular focus on the political and moral aspects of the rebellion. While Wallace often seems driven by a vision of Scotland's freedom, Hamish embodies the personal bonds that make the struggle for independence so meaningful. He serves as a reminder that, despite the larger-than-life battles and political maneuvering, it is the human connections and relationships that truly define the fight for freedom. Gleeson's portrayal of Hamish is filled with warmth, humor, and strength, and he brings an undeniable presence to the film. His most memorable moments are often those of friendship, such as when he proudly stands by Wallace's side in the heat of battle. However, Hamish also provides some of the film's more tender moments, particularly in the scene where he reconciles with Wallace after a moment of tension in the wake of their military defeats. Hamish is a character who, though deeply loyal, also has a grounded understanding of the personal cost of rebellion, and Gleeson's portrayal of this nuanced dynamic makes him a key emotional anchor for the film. Another pivotal secondary character is Murren, portrayed by Catherine McCormack. Though Murren is not present throughout the entire film, her impact on Wallace's journey is profound. She represents the innocence and peace that Wallace desires and longs for throughout the course of the film. Their love is idealistic and pure, something that stands in stark contrast to the brutal, chaotic world of politics and war around them. Murren's death, at the hands of the English soldiers, serves as the inciting incident that drives Wallace into action. Her loss is the personal tragedy that turns Wallace's life from a peaceful existence into a relentless quest for justice and vengeance. McCormack's portrayal of Murren, though not as physically prominent as other characters, is filled with grace and poignancy. Murren's tragic fate is not just the catalyst for Wallace's transformation, but also a poignant reminder of the personal costs of war. King Edward I, or Longshanks, is another important figure whose actions propel the plot forward. Played by Patrick McGoohan, Edward represents the cold, calculating force of imperialism. His character is ruthless and unwavering in his desire to maintain control over Scotland. Edward is the antagonist to Wallace's heroism, embodying the political power that seeks to crush the freedom and independence of the Scottish people. McGoohan brings a chilling intensity to Edward's portrayal, showcasing the manipulative and merciless nature of the king. He views Scotland not as a nation of people with their own rights and dreams but as a mere possession to be controlled. Edward's role in the story is crucial in setting up the personal and moral dilemmas that Wallace faces, and his interactions with Wallace are often tense, filled with an undercurrent of disdain and animosity. The English king's desire to break Wallace's spirit and power drives much of the tension in the latter half of the film. The secondary characters, such as the nobles who support or betray Wallace, also add rich layers to the narrative. The character of Stephen, David O'Hara, a jester who joins Wallace's rebellion, provides both comic relief and a sense of moral clarity in the film's darker moments. His loyalty to Wallace, despite the odds, showcases the deep sense of unity and camaraderie that is central to the rebellion's success. Stephen's humor, loyalty, and odd wisdom make him an unexpectedly memorable character in the film, offering a welcome contrast to the heavier themes of loss and betrayal. Braveheart is an ensemble piece, and the interplay between its various characters contributes to the film's thematic richness. Each character, from the powerful to the seemingly minor, plays a crucial role in creating a tapestry of emotional and political depth. Wallace's journey from a young man seeking justice to a martyr who inspires a revolution is complemented by the struggles, growth, and arcs of the other characters, each of whom is grappling with their own moral dilemmas, ambitions, and loyalties. Together, these characters form a deeply human story of a nation's fight for independence, and it is through their performances that the film's impact resonates so powerfully. In sum, the characters of Braveheart are integral to the film's emotional and thematic success. From Mel Gibson's commanding portrayal of Wallace to the nuanced performances of McFadden, Gleeson, and the rest of the supporting cast, the film creates a world of complex, multidimensional figures whose motivations, struggles, and triumphs elevate the narrative. These characters are unforgettable because they are not simply part of a historical epic. They represent universal themes of love, loyalty, sacrifice, and the quest for freedom. Each arc, each performance, blends seamlessly into the larger narrative, making Braveheart not just a tale of battle but one of deeply human, emotional journeys. In Braveheart, beneath the thunderous clashes of armies and the epic sweep of Scotland's fight for freedom, lies a rich tapestry of hidden details, subtle references, and Easter eggs that add depth to the story. These nuances elevate the film beyond a straightforward historical epic, turning it into a cinematic experience that rewards viewers with multiple layers of meaning. Whether they're subtle nods to history, visual motifs, or symbolic elements, these hidden details enhance the overall storytelling. Let's dive into some of the most fascinating and often overlooked moments that give Braveheart its lasting impact. One of the first Easter eggs that eagle-eyed viewers may spot is a visual callback to a theme central to the film, freedom. The opening scenes feature a young William Wallace gazing at a butterfly. This delicate creature, beautiful yet fragile, serves as an early metaphor for the fleeting, fragile nature of freedom. Wallace's own life will unfold with a similar theme, as his fight for Scotland's independence will constantly be threatened by powerful forces. This butterfly reappears at various points in the film, always fluttering between the man and the land he is fighting for. This connection will manifest in Wallace's speeches later in the film, where he invokes the land as both a metaphor for Scotland's independence and as something sacred that deserves to be protected at all costs. Nature, throughout Braveheart, is more than a backdrop. It's a symbol of purity, of life, and of what is worth fighting for. Moving beyond the visual, the film also offers several references to historical battles and figures, blending fact with creative storytelling. For example, the Battle of Stirling Bridge, which serves as one of the most pivotal moments in the film, is based on a real historical event. However, the movie's depiction of the battle lacks the actual bridge, which was a significant element in the historical battle. This omission is not an oversight but a conscious decision by director Mel Gibson to focus on the broader thematic message of the battle, David versus Goliath, the oppressed overcoming their oppressors, and the importance of tactical ingenuity over sheer strength. Though this creative liberty may raise eyebrows among history buffs, it also serves as a visual metaphor for Wallace's tactical brilliance. He does not need the traditional, structured battlefields of the English to win. Instead, he uses his surroundings and the terrain to his advantage. Another subtle Easter egg involves the role of Robert the Bruce, portrayed by Angus McFadden. While Robert's internal conflict and eventual redemption are central to the narrative, his journey can be seen as a reflection of Wallace's own struggles. Early in the film, when Robert is first introduced, the camera lingers on his face for an extended period. There's a noticeable shift in his expression as he watches Wallace rise as a leader of the rebellion. This moment, while subtle, foreshadows Robert's eventual choice to betray Wallace during the Battle of Falkirk. The camera's extended focus on Robert serves as a visual cue for the audience to track his emotional arc, subtly reinforcing the idea that he is both physically and mentally wrestling with his loyalties. More than just visual nods, the character of Robert the Bruce also acts as an intentional thematic counterpoint to Wallace. Wallace's path is one of idealism. He is driven by a deep, almost spiritual commitment to the cause of freedom. Robert, on the other hand, is pragmatic, at times even cynical, understanding that politics and power play a significant role in the path to independence. His betrayal of Wallace is, in some ways, a commentary on the harsh realities of leadership and the moral compromises that leaders sometimes must make. But Robert's ultimate redemption, and his role in bringing about the final Scottish victory, also speaks to the possibility of transformation and reconciliation. In many ways, Robert represents the balance between idealism and realpolitik, with the tension between these two forces driving much of the film's narrative. The film also makes clever use of symbolism to deepen its exploration of freedom and sacrifice. A recurring motif is the use of chains. While chains are often associated with oppression and slavery, they also come to symbolize the burdens of leadership. Wallace's role in the rebellion, while liberating Scotland from English tyranny, also places him in a metaphorical prison. His leadership forces him to constantly weigh the costs of war, the personal sacrifices he must make, and the toll that independence will take on his soul. Chains, in this context, are a symbol of both the cost of freedom and the way in which duty binds Wallace to his people. In the iconic final scene, when Wallace is strapped to the execution block and cries out for freedom, The chains he wears are a powerful symbol of his martyrdom. They represent not just his physical bondage, but also the weight of his ideals and the price of his unwavering commitment to the cause. Beyond these thematic elements, Braveheart also features references to other films and pop culture, creating a sense of intertextuality. For instance, the film draws comparisons to other historical epics, most notably Ridley Scott's Gladiator, 2000. Both films share a common theme: the fall of an individual who becomes a symbol of rebellion. The hero in both cases is not just a warrior, but a leader whose death becomes the galvanizing force for the cause he believes in. Wallace's eventual martyrdom mirrors that of Maximus, played by Russell Crowe, in Gladiator, who is also betrayed and ultimately sacrifices his life to bring about a better future for his people. In this way, Braveheart can be seen as a precursor to later films that explore the rise and fall of mythic figures and their impact on the societies they seek to liberate. Another subtle reference is the presence of the iconic Battle of Stirling Bridge scene, which serves as the film's emotional and dramatic climax. The chaos and the sudden, unexpected victory have been compared to the massive battle sequences in Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy, particularly the Battle of Helm's Deep. In both films, the heroes, against overwhelming odds, achieve victory through tactical ingenuity and the resolve to protect their homes. While the historical context differs, the thematic undercurrent of using tactics, overcoming adversity, and fighting for a cause greater than oneself links Braveheart to modern action epics, reinforcing the idea that the fight for freedom, regardless of time or place, is always a struggle against overwhelming power. In the realm of pop culture, Braveheart also plays with historical tropes and references that have become iconic in films about warfare and resistance. The speech Wallace gives before the Battle of Stirling, "They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom," has transcended the film itself, becoming a catchphrase associated with resistance and standing up to oppression. This line is now a part of the broader cultural lexicon and has been referenced in everything from political speeches to sports events. The line serves as an embodiment of the spirit of the film and encapsulates its core message in a way that resonates far beyond the movie's release. It's a moment that taps into a universal truth. The desire for freedom is an innate human impulse, and no matter how powerful the oppressor, that yearning can never be truly extinguished. As for the visual style of Braveheart, the film's use of landscape is another hidden gem that might not immediately be obvious to the viewer. The Scottish Highlands, often depicted as bleak and desolate, are shot in such a way that they not only serve as a backdrop to the action but also function symbolically. The sweeping vistas of rugged terrain reflect the internal struggles of the characters, particularly Wallace. The natural beauty of the Scottish landscape contrasts sharply with the violence and destruction brought on by war, reinforcing the idea that the land itself is sacred and worth fighting for. The relentless wind and unforgiving cliffs serve as metaphors for the harshness of the struggle for freedom, while also symbolizing the unyielding spirit of Wallace and the Scots. Lastly, the use of colors in Braveheart is a subtle but powerful storytelling tool. The film is dominated by earthy tones, greens, browns, greys, that evoke the natural world of Scotland. However, there are moments where bursts of color are used to emphasize the emotional weight of a scene. The most notable example is Wallace's face painted blue for battle. The blue face paint, which harkens back to the ancient Picts who used similar war paint, is not just a visual representation of Wallace's warrior spirit but also a symbol of his connection to the history of Scotland. This ritualistic marking of the skin becomes a statement of cultural identity, as Wallace fights not just for his own life but for the very heritage and sovereignty of his people. This subtle detail ties Wallace's rebellion to a long history of Scottish resistance, grounding his fight for independence in a larger narrative that extends back centuries. In conclusion, Braveheart is a film rich in hidden details, visual symbols, and subtle references that enhance the storytelling and provide a deeper understanding of its themes. From foreshadowing elements like the butterfly to clever nods to other films and historical events, these nuances create a layered and immersive cinematic experience. The use of symbolism, colors, and landscapes adds a deeper emotional resonance to the film, reinforcing its central themes of freedom, sacrifice, and the cost of independence. For those willing to look closely, Braveheart offers a wealth of hidden gems and Easter eggs that elevate the film from a historical epic to a timeless, emotionally charged narrative that continues to resonate with audiences long after the credits roll. Braveheart is one of those rare films that not only left an indelible mark on cinematic history but also carries with it a wealth of behind-the-scenes stories, challenges, and controversies that add layers of intrigue to its legacy. The making of the movie, from the conception of its epic scope to the many hurdles the cast and crew faced along the way, is filled with unexpected twists and fascinating facts. It's a tale of ambition, resilience, and creativity, driven by a director who refused to settle for anything less than greatness, often pushing the boundaries of what was possible on screen. One of the most intriguing aspects of Braveheart's production was the enormous scale of the film, which required vast amounts of planning, resources, and coordination. Director Mel Gibson, who also starred as the legendary William Wallace, was committed to bringing an authentic and immersive experience to the audience. This meant that the production had to capture the grand scope of the battles, the historical intricacies, and the emotional depth of the characters, all while being mindful of the physical and logistical challenges inherent in shooting such an ambitious film. The film's battle sequences were particularly complex, and they required extensive planning and preparation. The Battle of Stirling, which is one of the film's most iconic and intense moments, was not just a fight between two armies. It was a grand spectacle that required thousands of extras, horses, and complex choreography. To achieve this, the filmmakers enlisted the help of over 1,500 extras, many of whom were recruited locally in Ireland, where much of the film was shot. The logistics of managing such a large group were daunting, especially when it came to coordinating the movements of the horses and the melee combat. To further enhance the realism of the scenes, the filmmakers used very few special effects, relying instead on practical techniques and stunts. The result is an immensely visceral and realistic portrayal of medieval warfare, where the chaos of battle is both exhilarating and terrifying. However, even with a massive number of extras and careful planning, the production faced several obstacles. One of the most significant challenges was the unpredictability of the weather. Scotland's weather is notoriously unpredictable, and the filmmakers often found themselves at the mercy of the elements. For instance, during the filming of the Battle of Stirling, heavy rain and wind forced the crew to pause filming multiple times. These delays added to the pressure of meeting tight deadlines and budgets, but the perseverance of the cast and crew meant that the filming continued despite these setbacks. One particularly interesting behind-the-scenes story involves the famous scene where Mel Gibson, playing Wallace, rides into battle wearing blue face paint, a striking visual that has become one of the most iconic images in cinematic history. The decision to paint Gibson's face blue was inspired by the ancient Scots, who are believed to have painted their faces as a symbol of their warrior spirit. However, the application of the face paint was far from a simple process. In fact, it took over an hour every day for the makeup team to apply the paint, and it was often uncomfortable for Gibson. The blue paint, which was derived from a natural pigment, would also often rub off during intense action scenes, requiring frequent touch-ups. Despite the inconvenience, Gibson remained dedicated to bringing this distinctive and historically inspired visual to life. The blue face paint not only became synonymous with Wallace's warrior identity, but also served as a reminder of the cultural and historical roots of the rebellion that he led. While Gibson's commitment to authenticity is evident throughout the film, there were also several creative liberties taken with historical accuracy. For example, the character of Murren, played by Catherine McCormack, was given a much larger role in the narrative than she played in history. While Wallace was indeed deeply affected by the death of his wife, Murren's role in the film is greatly exaggerated for dramatic effect. Additionally, the Battle of Stirling is depicted without the iconic bridge that was a key element in the historical conflict. While these creative choices allowed the filmmakers to focus on the themes of heroism and rebellion, they also generated debate among history enthusiasts, some of whom criticized the film for taking liberties with real events. However, these historical deviations were not the only source of controversy. Braveheart also faced criticism for its portrayal of the English nobility, particularly King Edward I, played by Patrick McGoohan. Longshanks, as he is known in the film, is depicted as a ruthless and power-hungry monarch whose tyranny knows no bounds. McGoohan's performance, while chilling and intense, led some critics to accuse the film of unfairly vilifying the English. The depiction of Longshanks as a villainous figure sparked tensions, especially in the UK, where the film's portrayal of Scottish history was viewed with mixed feelings. Some saw it as a cathartic exploration of Scotland's past, while others felt it played too heavily into nationalistic sentiments. Despite these criticisms, Braveheart found immense success with audiences worldwide, largely because of its universal themes of freedom, rebellion, and the power of the human spirit. Beyond the historical debates, Braveheart also made waves for its incredible performances and character-driven storytelling. Mel Gibson's portrayal of William Wallace was widely praised, not only for his acting but also for his direction. Gibson's commitment to the role of Wallace extended far beyond the acting. As director, he worked closely with the cinematographers, editors, and costume designers to create a cohesive and immersive world. One of his most significant creative decisions was to embrace a gritty, raw visual style that eschewed the polished, romanticized version of medieval life that had been seen in other films. The costumes, for example, were designed to look worn and lived in, adding a layer of authenticity to the film. The armor was not shiny and pristine but battered, reflecting the harshness of the life that the characters led. This attention to detail helped immerse the audience in the medieval world, making the violence, the bloodshed, and the struggles of the characters feel more visceral and real. The film also stands out for its score, composed by James Horner, whose music became one of the most iconic soundtracks in cinematic history. Horner's score blends traditional Celtic motifs with grand orchestral compositions, enhancing the emotional depth of the story. The music plays a crucial role in creating the atmosphere of the film, elevating the tension during battle sequences and underscoring the emotional beats of the characters' journeys. The score's most famous piece, For the Love of a Princess, is an emotionally charged melody that resonates with themes of love, sacrifice, and loss. This hauntingly beautiful piece of music has since become synonymous with Braveheart and remains one of Horner's most beloved compositions. On the set, Gibson's intensity as both a director and actor was sometimes overwhelming for his cast and crew. There are several reports of his demanding nature, particularly during the filming of intense battle sequences. Many of the actors, including Brendan Gleeson, who played Wallace's loyal friend Hamish, have spoken about Gibson's relentless commitment to realism, sometimes to the point of exhaustion. For instance, in the scene where Hamish confronts a soldier in the midst of battle, Gleeson recalls how Gibson insisted that every single sword strike look authentic, pushing the actors to their physical limits. While this attention to detail sometimes led to tension on set, it also produced some of the most memorable and visceral moments in the film. Gleeson, in particular, has spoken fondly of the experience, noting that while the process was tough, the results were worth it. The success of Braveheart did not come without its fair share of challenges, and the production team faced numerous setbacks. As mentioned earlier, the weather often played a disruptive role, with rainstorms and high winds causing delays. But even more challenging were the injuries sustained by the actors. Many of the battle sequences were physically demanding, with cast members required to perform their own stunts. Gibson himself was injured during filming when a horse kicked him in the ribs. Despite the injury, Gibson continued filming, embodying the spirit of Wallace in more ways than one. This dedication to his role, as well as his commitment to maintaining the film's authenticity, has been praised by both critics and cast members alike. The physical demands of the film also extended to the many horses that were involved in the battle scenes. Horses were a key part of the medieval warfare depicted in the film, and the crew spent a considerable amount of time training the animals to perform the stunts. Unfortunately, some of the horses were injured during filming, and a few even had to be replaced. Despite these setbacks, the filmmaker's commitment to realism ensured that the horses were an integral part of the battle sequences, adding to the scale and intensity of the film's action scenes. Braveheart's success was not only measured by its box office performance but also by the many accolades it received. The film won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director, cementing its place in cinematic history. However, the journey to the Oscars was not an easy one. There was initial skepticism surrounding the film, with some predicting that it would fail to live up to the expectations set by its grand scope. But Braveheart proved the doubters wrong, earning widespread acclaim for its powerful performances, stunning visuals, and compelling story. The film's success marked a turning point in Mel Gibson's career, catapulting him into the upper echelons of Hollywood filmmaking and establishing him as a director of immense skill and vision. In the years since its release, Braveheart has remained a beloved classic, frequently referenced in popular culture and discussed for its historical inaccuracies, its impact on cinema, and its portrayal of heroism and sacrifice. The film's cultural influence can still be felt in modern filmmaking, as it helped pave the way for other historical epics like Gladiator, 2000, and Kingdom of Heaven, 2005, which also explored themes of freedom, rebellion, and leadership. In conclusion, the fascinating facts behind Braveheart reveal a movie that was not only shaped by its extraordinary cast and crew but also by the many challenges they faced in bringing it to life. The film's success is a testament to the vision, perseverance, and dedication of everyone involved, from the director to the extras who fought in the battle. Scenes. Braveheart's legacy lives on as a film that transcends its historical inaccuracies and speaks to universal themes of sacrifice, loyalty, and the pursuit of freedom. Whether through the intense battle sequences, the unforgettable performances, or the lasting impact it has had on cinema and pop culture, Braveheart remains a film that continues to captivate and inspire audiences around the world. One of the most remarkable aspects of Braveheart is how it expertly uses key moments to shape both its emotional depth and thematic weight, creating a lasting impact on audiences. These pivotal scenes are not simply plot points. They serve as emotional touchstones, deeply connected to the broader themes of the film, such as freedom, sacrifice, and the personal cost of rebellion. Each turning point in Braveheart serves a specific purpose in driving the narrative forward, while simultaneously deepening our understanding of the characters and their motivations. In this analysis, we'll dive into some of the most pivotal moments in the film, exploring how they serve both the emotional journey and the overarching thematic message, shaping the audience's experience and engagement. The first turning point in Braveheart comes early in the film, during the tragic death of William Wallace's, Mel Gibson, wife, Murren, Catherine McCormack. This moment is both deeply emotional and thematically significant, acting as the inciting incident that propels Wallace into a path of vengeance and rebellion. At the beginning of the film, Wallace is presented as a humble and peaceful man, living in harmony with his wife in the Scottish countryside. Their idyllic life is abruptly shattered when Murren is publicly executed by the English for resisting their oppression. This moment is emotionally devastating, not just because of Murren's death, but because it represents the broader theme of injustice that Wallace will later fight against. Murren's death acts as a catalyst, awakening a deep-seated rage and desire for justice within Wallace. The violence and brutality of the moment fuel his transformation from a simple farmer into a fierce leader of rebellion. What makes this scene so impactful, however, is the way it intertwines personal loss with national loss. Wallace's grief isn't just for his wife. It's for a larger injustice being imposed on the entire Scottish people. The raw emotion in this scene, the grief, the helplessness, and the burning desire for retribution, sets the tone for Wallace's entire journey. It's a moment that reshapes him, and it's also the moment that the audience understands what drives him: love, loss, and a fierce longing for freedom. As Wallace stands alone after Murren's death, his vow of vengeance is not just for her but for all the Scots who suffer under English rule. This sets in motion the central theme of the film: the fight for freedom, no matter the cost. The emotional intensity of this scene pulls the audience in, making them emotionally invested in Wallace's journey. This moment also foreshadows the larger conflicts that will follow, showing us that the personal and the political are inextricably intertwined. Wallace's transformation from a grieving widower to a symbol of resistance is one of the most powerful arcs in the film, and it begins with this heart-wrenching moment of loss. The second pivotal moment in Braveheart occurs during the Battle of Stirling, one of the most visually striking and emotionally charged sequences in the entire film. Here, the film reaches a crescendo in terms of both scale and intensity. The Battle of Stirling is not just a military confrontation. It is a symbolic moment for the Scots, a victory against overwhelming odds, and a statement of resistance against the tyranny of King Edward I, Patrick McGoohan. Before the battle, Wallace delivers one of the most famous speeches in cinematic history, rallying his men with the promise of freedom. The speech itself is incredibly moving because it taps into universal themes of resistance, justice, and hope. It's a call to arms, but more than that, It's a rallying cry for anyone who has ever been oppressed or denied their basic rights. Wallace's declaration that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom, encapsulates the central message of the film: the relentless fight for liberty, no matter the cost. This speech not only inspires the characters in the film, but it also resonates with the audience, evoking a sense of collective purpose and unity. The Battle of Stirling itself is a brutal and chaotic spectacle. The filmmakers use the scene to show the overwhelming power of the English army contrasted with the tactical ingenuity of Wallace and his men. It's a classic underdog story, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Wallace's strategy is brilliant. He uses the terrain to his advantage, luring the English into a trap that leads to a decisive victory. This battle is more than just a military success. It's a symbolic moment of triumph against a seemingly invincible oppressor. For the Scots, it's a moment of hope, a flicker of light in the darkness of their long struggle for freedom. On an emotional level, the Battle of Stirling works because it taps into the audience's deep-seated yearning for justice and freedom. The success of Wallace and his men, despite being vastly outnumbered, represents the possibility that even the most oppressed people can rise up and fight for what's right. This moment elevates the stakes of the film, showing that victory is not just about winning a battle. It's about the spirit of resistance, the belief that no force, however powerful, can suppress the human desire for freedom. However, the true emotional weight of the Battle of Stirling is not fully realized until the aftermath of the victory. The Scottish people celebrate, but Wallace's internal struggle begins to surface. Though his victory is a significant step towards Scottish independence, Wallace is not content. He knows that the fight is far from over, and the costs of rebellion are beginning to mount. The film uses this moment to underscore a crucial theme. The cost of freedom is not just paid in blood on the battlefield, but in the emotional toll it takes on the leaders and fighters who bear the burden of their people's hopes and dreams. The third key moment in Braveheart comes during the Battle of Falkirk, where the Scots face a devastating defeat. After the victory at Stirling, Wallace's leadership and influence grow, but with power comes betrayal. At Falkirk, Robert the Bruce, Angus MacFadden, who has become a key ally of Wallace, ultimately betrays him, leading to a disastrous defeat for the Scots. The film handles this betrayal in a way that highlights the complexity of Robert's character. Throughout the film, Robert's internal conflict is clear. He wants to fight for Scotland's freedom but is constantly torn between his loyalty to Wallace and his desire to secure his own position within the political structure. Robert's betrayal is a moment that strikes at the heart of the film's central themes of loyalty, trust, and the cost of leadership. For Wallace, this moment is both a personal and political tragedy. On one hand, he feels the sting of betrayal from a friend and ally. On the other, he faces the brutal reality that his vision for a free Scotland is not universally shared. The defeat at Falkirk not only brings emotional devastation to Wallace but also symbolizes the fragility of the rebellion. This moment underscores the film's exploration of the human cost of war and rebellion. The sacrifices are not just physical, but deeply emotional, as characters like Wallace must come to terms with the toll that leadership takes on their hearts and minds. This defeat also marks a crucial turning point in the film's emotional trajectory. Wallace, broken and defeated, must find the strength to continue. His journey shifts from that of a warrior to that of a martyr, someone who has become willing to sacrifice everything for the cause of freedom. The emotional power of this moment is felt deeply by the audience, as Wallace's personal and political struggles become intertwined in a poignant and tragic way. His inability to trust fully, even those closest to him, creates a sense of isolation that deepens as the film progresses. The final turning point in Braveheart occurs during Wallace's capture and subsequent execution. This moment is the culmination of his journey, a tragic end to a man whose life was defined by his fight for freedom. As Wallace is tortured and ultimately put to death, the emotional intensity of the film reaches its peak. This moment is not just a physical death. It is the death of an ideal. Wallace's willingness to sacrifice his life for his cause elevates his struggle to a symbolic level. It's a moment of profound catharsis for the audience, as they witness the ultimate cost of freedom. In terms of thematic weight, this final scene underscores the central message of Braveheart. The price of freedom is steep, and it's often paid in blood, sacrifice, and suffering. Wallace's death, while tragic, serves as a final declaration of his commitment to his cause. He dies knowing that his sacrifice will inspire others, and it's this inspiration that will ultimately lead to Scotland's eventual independence. This final scene also serves as a turning point for the character of Robert the Bruce. His redemption comes in the form of Wallace's death, and he finds the courage to carry on Wallace's fight. The emotional resonance of Wallace's martyrdom becomes the catalyst for Robert's own transformation, turning him from a conflicted man into a leader who is willing to fully embrace his role in the rebellion. The execution scene is a devastating and emotional conclusion to the story, but it is also a cathartic one. Wallace's death gives the film its emotional weight, and his sacrifice becomes a powerful symbol for the audience. The thematic message is clear. Even in the face of overwhelming oppression and brutality, the spirit of freedom cannot be extinguished. Wallace's ultimate legacy is not just in the actions he took during his life, but in the hearts and minds he inspired, ensuring that his vision of a free Scotland would ultimately be realized. These key moments in Braveheart, from Murren's death, to the Battle of Stirling, to Wallace's betrayal at Falkirk, and finally his execution, are not just turning points in the plot. They are emotional and thematic milestones that shape the entire narrative. Each one deepens our understanding of the characters and their motivations, and each one contributes to the overarching message of the film. The fight for freedom is not just a political struggle, but a deeply personal and emotional one. Through these pivotal moments, the film resonates on a universal level, reminding audiences that the cost of freedom is not only measured in battles won or lost, but in the sacrifices made by those who dare to fight for it. Braveheart is not just a film that captured the imaginations of audiences worldwide with its raw emotion and epic storytelling. It is a work of cinema that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in terms of filmmaking. From its grand battle sequences to its intricate character-driven moments, the movie's final form was shaped by a remarkable set of creative and technical choices. Behind the scenes, the dedication and expertise of the cast and crew made every frame of Braveheart a masterpiece, contributing to its status as one of the most iconic films in Hollywood history. In this exploration, we will dive into the making of the movie, uncovering fascinating behind-the-scenes insights, technical feats, and unforgettable anecdotes that helped elevate Braveheart to legendary status. One of the key aspects of Braveheart's success was its ability to blend a timeless historical story with modern filmmaking techniques. Director and lead actor Mel Gibson's vision for the film was one of total immersion, crafting an experience that felt as real and immediate as possible. The film's authenticity wasn't just about costumes or sets. It was also about capturing the visceral, gritty realism of medieval combat. Gibson pushed for a raw, intense look, opting for fewer special effects and relying heavily on practical methods, a decision that would pay off in the realism and authenticity of the film's most memorable sequences, particularly its battle scenes. The battle sequences, the heart of Braveheart. Perhaps the most awe-inspiring technical achievement in Braveheart is its breathtaking battle sequences. These scenes, particularly the Battle of Stirling, are some of the most memorable moments in the film, showcasing the intensity and chaos of medieval warfare. But what many viewers may not know is that these sequences were not only meticulously choreographed but also involved some groundbreaking technical decisions that contributed to their raw power. To create a battle of such massive scale, Gibson and the production team relied on a blend of practical effects, authentic costumes, and a staggering number of extras. For the Battle of Stirling, over 1,500 extras were enlisted to bring the scene to life. Many of these extras were sourced from local communities, and a large portion of the army was made up of Irish extras, many of whom had little to no experience with film production. This posed a challenge for the filmmakers, who had to ensure that the chaotic nature of battle felt authentic while also maintaining safety on set. The crew also faced significant logistical challenges in coordinating such a large number of people. The action was often filmed on vast open fields, where managing the actors and extras, along with horses and medieval weaponry, became a difficult and at times overwhelming task. Gibson worked tirelessly to keep the chaos in check, but he was also insistent that the battle sequences feel real and unsanitized. Unlike the well-planned, controlled battle sequences often seen in historical epics, Braveheart's battles were deliberately messy, designed to reflect the brutal nature of real warfare. For example, the famous shot where Wallace charges into battle, his blue face painted in the traditional Scottish warrior style, was achieved with a blend of practical effects and an impressive stunt coordination. Gibson's commitment to filming many of the stunts practically, rather than relying on CGI, was essential in capturing the sense of immediacy and danger that defines these scenes. While modern-day films may use digital effects to enhance the chaos of battle, Braveheart relied on careful choreography, using real horses, real swords, and real fighters to create the sense of authenticity that audiences felt. Choreography and stunt work, immersion and realism. The stunt work in Braveheart was a crucial element that helped sell the film's immersive nature. Since the production had a relatively modest budget compared to other big historical epics, the filmmakers had to rely heavily on practical stunts rather than special effects. This was a conscious decision by Gibson, who felt that real stunts performed by the actors themselves would elevate the intensity of the battles and make them more authentic. The result is a film where the battles feel incredibly visceral, full of danger, emotion, and urgency. Gibson himself, as the lead actor playing William Wallace, performed many of his own stunts, including the brutal sword fights and horseback riding sequences. The scene in which Wallace charges into battle at Stirling is one of the most iconic moments in the film, and it was achieved through Gibson's intense physical preparation. He spent weeks training to wield a sword, as well as learning how to fight while on horseback. This hands-on approach helped create a level of realism that modern CGI-heavy action scenes often lack. The stunt team, led by veteran stunt coordinator Alan Oppenheimer, worked tirelessly to create fight choreography that felt both fluid and chaotic. The battle scenes were shot from multiple angles, using a combination of wide shots to showcase the large-scale action and close-ups to capture the emotional intensity of individual moments. There is a certain rawness to the battle sequences in Braveheart. The blood, the sweat, and the sheer physicality of it all are palpable on screen. The filmmakers used real weapons and fought under the harsh conditions of the Scottish weather to achieve the look of authenticity. For instance, the bloody, gruesome fight between Wallace and the English soldiers at the Battle of Stirling was filmed with real weaponry, and the choreography was designed to make every slash of the sword or blow to the body feel intense and impactful. Gibson's commitment to this hands-on approach is part of what gives Braveheart its visceral, gut-punching power. The actors' physical commitment to their roles added to the gravity of the story. The battles are chaotic and intense, but there is also a sense of honor, love, and deep emotional stakes intertwined with each swing of the sword or blow dealt. The physicality of the actors' performances was critical in connecting the audience to the characters, making them feel the weight of each battle not just as warriors, but as men and women fighting for freedom. Costume design. Grounded in history, styled for drama in Braveheart, costume design is a critical factor in creating the film's unique aesthetic. The costumes are often gritty and weathered, contributing to the film's realistic and raw tone. The film's production designer, Suzanne Cave, worked closely with Gibson to create a look that would reflect the harsh realities of medieval life. One of the most interesting elements of the costume design is the authenticity with which the actors wear their costumes. Unlike the typical Hollywood period epics where the costumes are often immaculate, Braveheart's costumes are deliberately rough and worn, showcasing the physical toll the characters undergo. The decision to keep the costumes grounded in the everyday life of the Scots was crucial for the film's thematic focus on struggle and resistance. For example, William Wallace's iconic blue face paint and tartan kilt were not just there for spectacle. They symbolized his connection to his homeland and his willingness to fight for the freedom of his people. The blue face paint is symbolic of the ancient Scottish warriors who fought against Roman invaders, and by incorporating it into Wallace's character, the film establishes a deep, historical connection to Scotland's rebellious past. The other characters also sport worn, practical costumes that reflect the reality of living in a world of constant war and turmoil. The peasants and soldiers all wear outfits that look lived in and functional, rather than decorative. This adds a layer of authenticity to the film, making the story feel less like a fantasy and more like a brutal reality. The costume design helped establish the tone of the film early on, ensuring that every detail, right down to the fabrics and colors, conveyed the hardships of the time. Sound design and music, elevating emotion. Another technical achievement of Braveheart that contributed to its emotional impact is its sound design and score. James Horner's score, in particular, is one of the most iconic and widely recognized soundtracks in film history. The music in Braveheart is as integral to the storytelling as the visuals, helping to underscore the emotional weight of each scene. Horner's blend of Celtic music with sweeping orchestral themes gives the film a timeless and epic feel, underscoring both the historical setting and the universal themes of love, loss, and sacrifice. The score's use of the bagpipes, in particular, helps immerse the viewer in the film's Scottish setting. From the very first notes of the score, there's a sense of grandeur and passion, perfectly matching the film's tone. When combined with the stirring visuals of the battle sequences, Horner's music creates a powerful emotional resonance, pulling the audience into the story's emotional core. The way the score swells during key moments, such as Wallace's victory at Stirling, or his emotional final speech before his death, reinforces the drama, making these scenes even more emotionally impactful. The sound design also plays a key role in the film's realism. The clash of swords, the pounding hooves of horses, and the cries of warriors during battle all serve to pull the audience into the midst of the chaos. The sounds are raw and unrefined, making the battle sequences feel chaotic and dangerous. It's an immersive experience that allows the audience to feel as though they are right there on the battlefield with Wallace and his men. The legacy of Braveheart's production choices in the years since Braveheart's release, its technical achievements have remained influential in shaping the way epic historical dramas are made. The film set a new standard for how large-scale battles could be filmed without relying too heavily on digital effects. Instead, Braveheart used a combination of real stunts, practical effects, and a detailed attention to history to create a film that felt both epic in scope and deeply personal in its emotional impact. The techniques used to make the battle scenes feel chaotic and realistic, the gritty costumes and sets, and the soaring score all combined to give Braveheart its lasting power as a cinematic masterpiece. In the end, it was these creative and technical decisions that elevated Braveheart from just another historical epic to a film that continues to resonate with audiences decades after its release. Whether it was the raw and intense battle sequences, the deeply immersive costume design, or the stirring emotional beats brought to life through Horner's music, every technical aspect of the film worked in harmony to make Braveheart one of the most enduring films of its genre. Its production choices were not only groundbreaking for their time but have also. Braveheart is not just an action-packed historical epic. It is a film deeply embedded with themes that resonate with audiences on an emotional and intellectual level. These themes are not just window dressing for the historical drama. They are integral to the film's emotional power and its lasting relevance. From freedom and sacrifice to betrayal and the cost of war, Braveheart explores a variety of ideas that transcend the 13th century Scottish rebellion, touching on issues that still echo in the modern world. At its core, Braveheart is a story about the struggle for freedom. Freedom from oppression, from tyranny, and from subjugation. But the film does not just present freedom as a simplistic concept. It examines the complexity of this fight, showing the sacrifices, the personal costs, and the very real consequences of taking up arms against an empire. Through the struggles of William Wallace and his fellow Scots, the film explores what it means to fight for a cause greater than oneself, the personal toll of rebellion, and the moral compromises that sometimes accompany the fight for justice. The fight for freedom, a universal struggle. One of the central themes of Braveheart is the fight for freedom. The Scottish rebellion led by William Wallace against the English tyranny is framed as a battle for the basic human right of self-determination. This universal theme of freedom transcends the historical context of the film, resonating with anyone who has ever fought or yearned for liberty. Wallace's iconic rallying cry, "They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom," sums up the theme of resistance against oppression, which is central to the film's narrative. The portrayal of the struggle for freedom in Braveheart draws from the historical context of Scotland's fight for independence, but it also speaks to broader human experiences. Wallace's journey mirrors that of countless freedom fighters throughout history, from revolutionaries seeking to overthrow tyrannical regimes to individuals challenging social injustices. The film taps into the collective longing for autonomy, justice, and the right to live free from oppression, making it a timeless story. However, the film doesn't present freedom as a simple, one-dimensional goal. Wallace's fight is not just for political freedom. It is also a deeply personal journey. His quest for justice is born from the pain of his personal loss. His wife, Murren, is killed by the English, which sparks Wallace's transformation from a humble farmer into a revolutionary leader. This personal stake in the fight for freedom highlights the theme that the pursuit of liberty often comes at a great personal cost. For Wallace, freedom is not just a political ideal. It is the memory of love, the desire to protect one's land, and the yearning for justice for those who suffer. The cost of this fight is made clear throughout the film, especially as Wallace's rebellion gains momentum. His victories in battle are not just for the glory of the Scots. They are a manifestation of his need for revenge and justice. But even as he leads his countrymen to battle, Wallace comes to realize that freedom isn't something that can be easily won. It is a fight that requires sacrifice, and by the time of his death, Wallace has sacrificed everything: his love, his life, and ultimately, his soul, for the cause of freedom. The film's exploration of freedom also resonates with contemporary struggles. The fight against English oppression can be seen as a metaphor for the ongoing struggles for autonomy, self-determination, and civil rights in the modern world. Whether it's political oppression, social injustice, or personal freedom, Braveheart asks its audience to reflect on what freedom means and what individuals are willing to sacrifice for it. Betrayal and loyalty. The cost of rebellion. Another critical theme explored in Braveheart is betrayal and loyalty, two themes that deeply affect both the narrative and the characters' emotional journeys. Wallace's story is one of perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds, but it is also marked by the painful reality that not all of those who fight alongside him share his vision or loyalty. One of the most poignant moments in the film comes when Robert the Bruce, Angus MacFadden, betrays Wallace, leading to the Scots' defeat at the Battle of Falkirk. This act of betrayal underscores the emotional complexity of the film, where even the most well-intentioned individuals must navigate their personal ambitions and allegiances. Robert the Bruce's internal struggle is a key component of the film's exploration of loyalty. His desire to help Wallace and fight for Scotland's freedom is contrasted by his family's pressure to maintain political power and secure their position within the English-dominated system. Robert's betrayal reveals the difficult choices faced by those in power and highlights the tension between personal conviction and the political realities of leadership. In a world where allegiances are often dictated by power and self-preservation, Robert's betrayal is a tragic commentary on the compromises people make when faced with the difficult choice between loyalty to a cause and loyalty to their own interests. However, Braveheart also depicts the power of loyalty. Wallace's own unwavering loyalty to his cause, despite the betrayals around him, underscores the idea that true devotion to a cause is worth the sacrifices that come with it. His loyalty to the Scots, his people, and his belief in freedom drives him forward even when everything seems lost. Wallace's ultimate death is a culmination of his loyalty, not just to the fight for freedom, but to the vision of an independent Scotland. The theme of betrayal is also deeply linked to the film's portrayal of power. Wallace's rebellion against King Edward I and his army is not just about personal revenge or political power. It is about reclaiming agency and fighting back against a system of rule that thrives on betrayal and manipulation. Wallace's struggle represents a challenge to the oppressive, hierarchical systems of authority that reward loyalty to the powerful while punishing those who dare to defy them. Braveheart underscores the idea that the fight for freedom comes at a high price, one that is paid in blood, pain, and loss. The sacrifices made by Wallace and his followers are central to the film's emotional depth and its themes of justice and liberty. Wallace's willingness to sacrifice everything, including his life, for the cause of Scotland's independence is the ultimate testament to the cost of freedom. This theme of sacrifice is most powerfully expressed in Wallace's death. His refusal to submit to King Edward's demands, even as he faces torture and execution, signifies the true meaning of sacrifice. Wallace's martyrdom becomes a symbol of the undying spirit of resistance. His death does not mark the end of the Scottish rebellion. Instead, it becomes the rallying cry that inspires others to continue the fight. The film's closing moments, when Robert the Bruce ultimately takes up Wallace's cause and leads the Scots to victory, demonstrate the enduring power of sacrifice. Wallace's death is not in vain, as it sparks the fire of rebellion in the heart of the Scottish people. The idea of sacrifice is also explored through the character of Murren, Wallace's wife, whose death in the early part of the film becomes a catalyst for Wallace's quest for freedom. Her death not only drives Wallace's personal desire for vengeance but also reinforces the theme that personal sacrifice is often necessary for the greater good. Murren's sacrifice, though tragic, is a pivotal moment in the film, representing the personal costs that individuals often pay in the fight for justice. The film's portrayal of sacrifice is not just about physical death but also the emotional and psychological toll that comes with leading a revolution. Wallace's journey reveals that the fight for freedom requires more than just physical strength. It demands emotional endurance and an unshakable commitment to a cause. Throughout the film, Wallace is forced to grapple with the personal loss, betrayal, and isolation that come with being a leader. But despite these challenges, his sacrifice is what ultimately inspires those around him to continue the fight. Symbols of resistance. Tartan and the blue paint Braveheart uses symbolism to deepen its themes of resistance and rebellion, adding layers of meaning to the character's struggles and the larger narrative. One of the most potent symbols in the film is the use of tartan and blue face paint, which tie Wallace to the historical figure of the ancient Scottish warrior, the Pict. The blue paint that Wallace wears before battle is not just a visual identifier. It represents the ancient spirit of Scotland's resistance to invaders, particularly the Romans. By adopting this symbolic gesture, Wallace connects himself to the long tradition of Scottish warriors who fought for independence. The use of tartan, a quintessentially Scottish fabric, further reinforces the theme of Scottish identity and national pride. Wallace's rebellion is not just a personal quest for revenge. It is a fight to reclaim Scotland's independence and restore its cultural identity. The tartan and blue paint symbolize the unity of the Scottish people, bound together by their shared history, culture, and heritage. These symbols become a rallying point for Wallace's followers and contribute to the broader message of resistance against foreign domination. The symbolism of the blue paint and tartan also highlights the difference between Wallace's vision of Scotland and the English colonizers. Where the English soldiers are depicted in uniform, representing the order and control of the British Empire, the Scottish rebels are often shown in disarray, wearing what they can find, their faces painted with war paint. This stark contrast between the two sides emphasizes the idea that the Scots are not fighting for power or conquest, but for the preservation of their way of life and their freedom. Cultural and societal commentary, a reflection of power and oppression beyond its historical context, Braveheart can be read as a commentary on power, oppression, and the ways in which societies are shaped by rulers who seek to control the masses. King Edward I, the English monarch who is portrayed as a cruel and manipulative leader, represents the embodiment of tyrannical rule. His attempts to subjugate the Scottish people reflect the real-world struggles of many oppressed groups throughout history, those who are forced to fight against systems of power that seek to dominate their identities, lands, and futures. Braveheart is a masterclass in visual storytelling, where every shot, every sound, and every moment of cinematography is designed to enhance the narrative and elevate the emotional resonance of the story. Under the direction of Mel Gibson, who also stars as the iconic William Wallace, the film employs a range of cinematic techniques that not only support the narrative but amplify its thematic weight. The cinematography, sound design, and overall visual language of Braveheart serve as powerful tools that convey the film's core themes of freedom, sacrifice, and the brutal reality of war. In this exploration, we will delve into how these elements work together to create a cohesive cinematic experience that captivates the viewer from beginning to end. Cinematography, crafting a visceral experience. From the opening frame to the final battle, Braveheart utilizes cinematography as a storytelling device, creating a visual language that immerses the audience into the world of medieval Scotland. Cinematographer John Toll, who won an Academy Award for his work on the film, plays a crucial role in capturing the scale and intimacy of the story. The camera choices throughout the film reflect the emotional journey of the characters, shifting between sweeping vistas that convey the grandeur of battle and intimate, close-up shots that highlight the personal stakes of the story. Wide shots and the power of the landscape. One of the most striking elements of the cinematography in Braveheart is its use of wide, expansive shots of the Scottish Highlands. These shots, often framed in soft, golden light, convey the untamed beauty and harshness of the landscape. The vast, unspoiled wilderness serves as both a backdrop to the character's struggle and a reflection of the wild, unyielding spirit of the Scots. The Highland landscape is portrayed as a powerful and almost mystical force, one that stands in stark contrast to the mechanized, industrial world of the English oppressors. The wide shots of the battlefields are similarly grand in scale, emphasizing the chaos and intensity of war. For example, the Battle of Stirling, one of the most iconic sequences in the film, is filmed using long, sweeping shots that capture the full scope of the engagement. These wide-angle shots allow the viewer to see the full breadth of the carnage, from the mass of soldiers charging across the field to the individual moments of violence that make up the larger battle. The camera moves fluidly, allowing the audience to experience the frenetic energy of the battle while also grounding the chaos in individual acts of heroism and sacrifice. Intimate close-ups and emotional connection. In contrast to the grandeur of the battle sequences, Braveheart also makes powerful use of close-up shots to emphasize the emotional stakes of the story. The film frequently zooms in on the faces of its characters, particularly William Wallace, to capture the raw intensity of their emotions. These close-ups are not merely aesthetic. They provide insight into the character's inner turmoil, desires, and motivations. One of the most notable uses of close-up shots is during the scenes of personal loss. Wallace's grief after the death of his wife, Murren, is captured through a series of close-ups that show the rawness of his pain. The camera lingers on Wallace's face, allowing the audience to see his silent suffering and internalization of the loss. This use of close-up cinematography enhances the viewer's emotional connection to Wallace, making his subsequent quest for freedom feel deeply personal and relatable. The close-up shots are also used to create intimacy between the characters. The relationship between Wallace and Murren is conveyed through subtle moments, small gestures, touches, and glances, that are emphasized through the tight framing of the camera. These intimate shots help build the emotional core of the story, making the audience care about the characters' fates long before the large-scale battles take place. Handheld camera work, chaos and realism. Perhaps one of the most effective cinematic techniques used in Braveheart is the use of handheld camera work, particularly during the battle sequences. The handheld shots create a sense of urgency and realism, placing the audience in the midst of the action. The jittery, unstable nature of the handheld camera mirrors the chaos and confusion of combat, enhancing the viewer's sense of being there on the battlefield with the characters. This technique is especially evident in the scenes where the Scots are charging into battle. The camera follows Wallace and his warriors as they sprint towards the enemy, moving with them through the fray. The shaky, erratic movements of the camera not only heighten the sense of danger but also give the battle sequences a sense of unpredictability, making the violence feel visceral and immediate. The handheld camera work in Braveheart serves as a stark contrast to the more controlled and composed shots used to depict the English army, highlighting the difference between the two sides' approaches to war. Lighting, enhancing mood and atmosphere. Lighting is another key element in the visual storytelling of Braveheart, helping to establish the mood and tone of each scene. The film often utilizes natural light, particularly in outdoor sequences, to create an earthy, grounded feel. The use of soft, golden lighting in the highland landscapes enhances the film's sense of beauty and melancholy, while the harsher, colder light used in battle scenes adds to the brutality and violence of war. The symbolism of light and darkness. Throughout Braveheart, lighting is used symbolically to underscore the themes of the film. Wallace's moments of triumph, such as his early victory at Stirling, are often bathed in warm, golden light, emphasizing the righteousness and nobility of his cause. These moments of victory are presented as almost mythical, with the lighting lending a sense of divine approval to Wallace's actions. In contrast, moments of loss and despair are often shrouded in shadow, with the lighting emphasizing the emotional weight of the scene. The scenes leading up to Wallace's execution, for example, are marked by stark, harsh lighting, casting long shadows that evoke a sense of doom and inevitability. The lighting in these moments emphasizes the personal cost of rebellion, highlighting the tragic nature of Wallace's sacrifice for freedom. One of the most iconic moments in the film's use of light is the scene in which Wallace delivers his defiant last words before being executed. As he shouts freedom to the crowd, the camera frames him in a low-angle shot, with the sunlight shining behind him. This shot, bathed in light, creates a powerful image of Wallace as a martyr for the cause of freedom, symbolizing the idea that his spirit will live on even after his death. The contrast between the light and dark elements in this scene reinforces the film's themes of resistance, sacrifice, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Editing, pacing the drama and enhancing the tension. The editing in Braveheart plays a crucial role in shaping the film's pacing and building dramatic tension. Editor John Wright, who worked on the film, uses a combination of rhythmic editing and longer, unbroken takes to create a sense of fluidity in the action sequences while also allowing emotional moments to breathe. The film's structure, which alternates between intense battle sequences and quieter, introspective moments, is balanced through the careful use of editing. Another element that truly sets Braveheart apart is the unforgettable performances from its cast. Mel Gibson's portrayal of William Wallace is the film's emotional center. His passionate performance captures the depth of Wallace's internal conflict, his love for his country, his grief over personal losses, and his determination to lead his people to freedom. Gibson's commitment to his role, both as an actor and as a director, allows the character to transcend the traditional portrayal of a historical figure and instead become a fully realized, complex human being. The emotional weight that Gibson brings to the role resonates throughout the film, making the audience care deeply for Wallace's journey and his struggle against injustice. In addition to Gibson's iconic performance, the film benefits from the strong chemistry among the supporting cast. The relationships between Wallace and his comrades, particularly his bond with Robert the Bruce, played by Angus McFadden, add layers of complexity to the story. These characters' personal struggles mirror the larger national conflict, making the film's emotional moments even more impactful. The performances of actors like Brian Cox, David O'Hara, and Catherine McCormack contribute to a well-rounded ensemble that brings authenticity and heart to the film's narrative. Of course, no discussion of Braveheart would be complete without acknowledging its groundbreaking battle sequences. The intensity and raw emotion conveyed in these scenes, especially the Battle of Stirling, set a new standard for historical epics. The chaotic, brutal nature of the combat in Braveheart was unlike anything audiences had seen before. The realism of the battle scenes, from the use of real weapons to the unflinching portrayal of violence, gave the film a sense of immediacy and weight. The iconic moments, like Wallace charging into battle with his blue face paint and his rallying speech, have become synonymous with the film and remain some of the most powerful sequences in cinematic history. On top of its immense influence on the historical epic genre, Braveheart is a film that continues to be deeply relevant. Its themes of freedom, resistance against oppression, and the fight for justice still resonate with contemporary audiences, making it not just a film about Scotland in the 13th century, but a timeless story about the human spirit. The way the film captures the ideals of liberty and independence has made it a touchstone in political discourse and cultural identity, with the character of William Wallace becoming a symbol for those fighting against tyranny. Braveheart also continues to inspire filmmakers and actors, who look to it as an example of how to blend large-scale action with emotionally grounded storytelling. But the film's legacy is not without its controversies. The historical liberties taken in the portrayal of events and characters have sparked significant debate among historians and critics. While some argue that these deviations from historical accuracy detract from the film's credibility, others believe that Braveheart's focus on emotional truth rather than strict factual accuracy is part of its charm and effectiveness. The film was never meant to be a documentary, but rather a reimagining of Scotland's struggle for independence through the lens of dramatic storytelling. Despite these controversies, the emotional impact and cultural significance of the film have solidified its place in cinematic history. Moreover, Braveheart's recognition by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, including winning 5 Academy Awards, Best Picture, Best Director for Mel Gibson, Best Cinematography, Best Sound Editing, and Best Makeup, speaks to the film's overall excellence and lasting impact on the industry. These accolades reflect the film's achievement on every level, from its direction and performances to its technical craftsmanship. In addition to the Oscars, the film received numerous other nominations and awards, further cementing its importance in both the film industry and popular culture. When considering Braveheart's legacy, it's important to remember that it's not just a film about Scotland's past. It's a film about the universal struggle for freedom. Its powerful storytelling, memorable characters, and stunning visuals have made it a cultural touchstone that continues to inspire and captivate new generations of viewers. Whether it's the enduring popularity of its famous lines or the timeless relevance of its themes, Braveheart has proven that it's more than just a film. It's an enduring symbol of resistance, sacrifice, and the pursuit of justice. As we reflect on the impact Braveheart has had on cinema, pop culture, and audiences, it's clear that the film's influence will continue to be felt for years to come. The movie has earned its place as one of the greatest films in modern cinematic history, with its sweeping scale, emotional resonance, and unforgettable moments standing the test of time. Whether you're revisiting it for the first time in years or watching it for the 100th time, Braveheart continues to evoke powerful emotions and inspire new conversations about freedom, justice, and the human spirit. In closing, Braveheart is a film that continues to captivate and inspire through its epic storytelling, powerful performances, and enduring legacy. Its ability to touch the hearts of audiences and its impact on the genre and cinema at large ensure that it remains a landmark achievement. If you haven't seen it yet, or if it's been a while since you last watched it, I highly encourage you to revisit this unforgettable film. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Braveheart, be sure to hit that like button to support the channel, subscribe for more in-depth explorations of other classic films, and stay tuned for our next exciting journey into the world of cinema. Thank you for joining us on this adventure, and we look forward to bringing you more fascinating insights in the future.